Welcome to our podcast, Unmetered. As a member-owned not-for-profit electric cooperative, we're focused on providing affordable, reliable, safe electricity and outstanding member service. One way that we've found that we can do that is by providing more avenues of communication to you, our member. Through this podcast, we hope that you'll be able to find some helpful hints, tips, and things to help you conserve energy, as well as some informational pieces that will help you understand what it is to be a member.
Welcome back to Unmetered. This is episode 10, which we're pretty excited about. We're going to be talking about Christmas energy efficiency and Christmas safety. In this episode, we're going to kind of take a look at some of the things you can do to protect your family, to protect your home. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast or to our YouTube channel. You can find the podcast in audio format through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, some of the other major podcast platforms, but you can also find the videos on YouTube, so check those out.
We have a recreation program. One of our first projects was to revitalize our gymnasium, which was an old gym, and we received grant money from Middle Tennessee Electric to put a roof on.
So let's get started with safety this week. Safety is a very important piece to any holiday. Safety is a very huge importance to Middle Tennessee Electric, and we want to make sure that our members are taking every precaution they can to ensure that they have a great holiday week. The month is going to have a lot of festivities going on, and so you definitely don't want to see an electrical problem be the reason that it spoils everything. So when it comes to safety, there's a few major things that we're going to take a look at. The first of which is you don't want to overload your circuits. Now, each circuit in your house is going to have a breaker on it. Now, those breakers could be 15 or 20 amps, and that roughly relates to 1,800 to 2,400 watts. Now, when you're looking at how much power you've got on a system, your string lights typically eat up about 175 watts for a 25 bulb string of lights. Now, those are incandescents. Those burn a little more. That burns a little more power than, say, your LEDs. But when you're thinking about a 25 string of light, that's not very many. Most people are using 50s, 100s, or even 300 strands of lights. Now, that could end up leading to an excess of 900 watts for a single outlet. Now, when you start adding all those together, you could easily overload your circuit, and that's one of the major reasons why you can trip a breaker, you can start a fire, you can overheat, your decorations just because it's not built to handle that. Now, the other thing that you can do to help keep from overloading your circuits is to use heavy-duty extension cords. Now, this is something where, say you've got a tree over in the living room, and all of your electrical outlets are on one breaker. An easy way to get off of that one breaker is to run an extension cord from, say, another portion of the house. But when you do that, you want to make sure you're using a heavier extension cord, because if you're using a lightweight extension, then you put 300 lights on a lightweight and you could overheat that cord and potentially cause a fire. Now, one thing to remember is that with extension cords, they are temporary. You don't want to use an extension cord as a primary piece of your lighting day in, day out, for months at a time. It's just for the holidays, drop an extension cord down. When you get done, pull it back up. Make sure that you've taped it down or secured it in some way, especially if there's going to be high foot traffic, kids, dogs. If you've got anyone who has problems with walking or are going to be using any type of wheelchairs or walkers, make sure that's secured down, because you don't want to see someone trip or fall or just pull down the decorations because of that extension cord. Now, another thing to understand is knowing which outlets are on which circuits. Each house is wired differently. You'll definitely want to take a look and see which breakers control which outlets. The easiest way to do that is to plug in a lamp and start flipping off breakers and moving the lamp around the room. That's one easy way to do it. Once you've done that, definitely kind of make a note on your breakers so that way which outlets are controlled where. And that's just good to know in general, but especially during the holidays, as people are coming over, if there's a problem, you want to quickly fix those. Now, one thing that you don't want to do is plug in space heaters if you're going to also be doing decorations, especially lighting decorations, because space heaters really eat up the wattage. You know, a typical space heater can use anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500 watts of power. Now, you know, when you're talking about your circuit only handling 1,800 to 2,400 watts, I mean, that's more than 50% of it, you know. And space heaters, while, yeah, they do great for warming a particular area of the house, they're highly inefficient when it comes to heating your home. The better option would be to turn your HVAC unit and let it warm up slowly, you know, 1 degree at a time, so that way your auxiliary heat doesn't kick in. But you do want to be aware of where your space heaters are in relation to your lighting decorations. Now, the one thing that you got to watch out for when you do overload a breaker is if it shuts off, go back and figure out why it shut off. You know, if the breaker clicks off on you, there's a reason. It's built there as a safety precaution. And so if all you're ever doing is going back and flipping it back on and never identifying why it's going off, that could really lead to an issue. The other thing you got to be aware of with holiday decorations and safety is going to be the fire, you know, precautions, taking those extra steps to make sure that flammable objects aren't around. The second thing you need to be aware of when you're dealing with safety during the holidays is going to be your Christmas tree decor. So Christmas trees each year cause roughly 200 home fires every year, and a third of those were caused because of an electrical failure. So when you're lighting up your tree, again, as we talked about earlier, you know, make sure that your breakers, you've got the lights on different breakers, that you're not overloading those, that you're not pulling too much power and causing an issue there. But also be aware of what's around your Christmas tree. So your Christmas tree, you know, if you're using a real tree, the older it gets, you know, the longer it's been cut, the more opportunity it is for it to dry out and to become brittle and more flame attractant. So what you want to do is use flame resistant decorations. You know, make sure that anything on there has, you know, there's oftentimes a little certification on it. There's a little note that says this is flame resistant. You know, check those out as you're going through there. Make sure that, you know, if you're lighting candles around your decorations, that you're not lighting them too close to your trees or lighting them in a place where kids or pets or just, you know, a general clumsy person could knock it over and start a fire. You know, one thing that you do want to understand is that, you know, we use candles all the time. Most people are very comfortable with candles, but that also, because we're comfortable with them, there is a tendency to get complacent with their safety. So watch out where those are at, especially when it comes to where they are in relation to your decorations, your trees, you know, because decorations, you know, not including trees, the Christmas trees each year, result in about 850 home fires every year. I mean, that's a very large number for an easy thing to prevent. So just be aware of what open flames are around your decorations and what you're doing with them. Now, when you're dealing with outdoor decoration, it's a little bit different. So outdoor decoration, we sometimes, you know, will not think about as well, because there's oftentimes not enough breakers on the system on your outdoor lighting, and so it's very easy to overload those quickly. So again, you're going to want to make sure that as you're plugging things in, you know, it's not hard to count up how many watts you're using. There's plenty of tools online that you can do to calculate how much energy you're pulling from a particular outlet. But the first things you want to do when you're decorating outdoors is check and make sure that your electrical cords are not damaged. You know, look for fraying, look for slice lines, look for there's to be any holes in those lines, because that's one of the quickest way to short out your lighting. It's an easy way to trip your breaker is to have water get down in there, especially this time of year. There's a lot of rain that's been the past couple weeks, so you want to make sure you're watching out for that. The other thing is with those extension cords is you want to make sure that you're using an outdoor extension cord. Outdoor extension cords are heavier duty. They are insulated better, and typically they are going to be a higher gauge, you know, because they are made for longer runs. So if you're, you know, going 25, 50 feet, 100 feet, you want to make sure that higher gauge, because what that's going to do is it's going to lower your chance for causing a overheating a cord, and so that's an easy way to fix that. Typically, the lights that you're using outdoors also need to be designated as outdoor lights. Indoor lights are cheaper, so a lot of times we buy those, especially the incandescents. The incandescent bulbs do get warm, and then when you put those outdoors and they're not insulated well, they're easily gonna either burn out. And then you've got to go through all the lights and figure out, okay, which one's out, and that's just a hassle. So save yourself some trouble and improve your safety by using outdoor lighting. Typically, you can tell which ones are outdoor because they're going to be marked by a underwriter's laboratory mark. The UL is the designation that you'll see on there, and the red one is going to show that it is for outdoor use or indoor use. So there's no problem in doing an outdoor light indoors. That doesn't cause any issues. But when you see one that's marked with a green, with a green stripe, that's showing that it's an indoor use only. So don't use those outside. You keep those indoors. My recommendation is to always buy the outdoor ones because you never know where you're going to use them. They're not that much more expensive to get the outdoor version, and ultimately they're going to last a little bit more because now you're using them outdoors, indoors, and if somebody spills something indoors, you're not going to short anything out. The other thing you want to be aware of when you're decorating outdoors is never tack or nail your extension cords. So a lot of times, I've done it myself of putting a nail on either side of the extension cord. You want to be careful with that because what ends up happening is when you nail that on there, to the weather, to the side of the house or around trees, you end up clipping the wire a little bit, and that ends up causing a crack in it, which can deteriorate and again open your cord up to moisture or animals chewing on it or things like that. So again, skip with the nails and instead buy fasteners. So they're a little more expensive to use, but there's less chance of you damaging your cords and causing a safety problem. The other thing to be aware of when you're decorating. So, with decorating, a lot of times we're using ladders. We're wanting to decorate high, especially if we're doing trees outdoors. But be aware of overhead power lines, especially when it comes to being near your home. The power where it comes in, where it comes into the house and goes down into the meter. You want to make sure that you're not walking with a ladder straight up in the air and clip that wire because that will quickly lead to some serious damage or even a fatality. So keep your decorations, keep your ladders from those overhead power lines. If you're doing a gingerbread house lighting design on your house, if you get to where the meter is, just skip it. There's really no need to get that close and potentially injure yourself by accidentally hitting one of those wires. Now, another thing to be aware of is a good, if you don't already have these installed on the outdoor outlets, look into GFCI Outlets. So those interrupters are going to reduce the chance of getting an electrical shock, especially in rainy weather. You're going outside, you're putting up lights, or maybe you're somebody who plugs them in using a timer or something like that, and you're not really paying attention, and you could easily shock yourself if you're doing that in the rain or in a high moisture environment. So make sure that if they're available, use a GFCI outlet. Again, that's just going to help save you in the event of a shock. And then the last thing you want to do is, again, we talked about indoors, making sure that you secure down any extension cords in the high traffic areas. Outdoors is going to be the same situation. Outdoors, you're still going to have that problem. So again, secure down any cords to prevent tripping. Well, thanks for listening in this week. If you'd like to see more tips and tricks to keep your home safe and energy efficient, you can visit our blog at mtemc.com/unmetered. That's mtemc.com/unmetered. And we've got a blog up about safety. We've also got a blog up about energy efficiency. If you haven't yet voted in our Deck the Halls Facebook contest, take a look. We've had several people have entered in. We've got some really good entries, and the fans are going to tell us who wins. So be sure to log on to our Facebook and to check out our Deck the Halls contest, and the winners are going to end up getting an Amazon gift card. So you can still enter, but we really are looking for votes in the final week to make sure that we have a clear-cut winner on who gets the top prize. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.
Unmetered is brought to you by Middle Tennessee Electric.